Right. Thanks everyone for returning. We are back at the NourishED Summit. It is 1 p.m. on Saturday, and we're going to kick off our kind of afternoon session with Mỹ Hiếu Lê. And Dharma name, oh, I'm going to defer to you. I don't want to mispronounce it. Sukhotiknu Lianan.
Perfect.
Excellent. Um, Hugh's a dedicated clinical research associate and one of our lead researchers on our Buddhist-informed contemplative counseling team here at NourishED. Hugh is also the lead facilitator in our Sila Samadhi Prajna course series and has designed the series, and we're just really so excited to share that. Hugh holds a Master's of Arts, so an MA in Clinical Mental Health Counseling from Naropa University, specializing in Buddhist-informed contemplative counseling. Hugh's also a Vietnamese nun, ordained, I believe, at age 13, if I remember correctly, and comes from a lineage of monastics, as well as a dedicated mental health counselor, runs a private practice here in Colorado in Mind Bodhi. And we've got the link on NourishED if anyone is interested in following up, or you can also just reach out to Hugh. I'll have her put her email in the chat. Her work really bridges ancient Buddhist practices, Dharma wisdom, and contemplative practices with Western psychology. And that's kind of been a theme throughout the day here. That was something that Francis kind of spoke on in his talk, kind of the difference between Western mindfulness and Buddhist mindfulness. And I think he will help kind of expand that talk. She focuses on trauma-informed counseling skills with excellence in public speaking, clinical research, cross-cultural community engagement. She most recently has spent the past, I think, 2 months maybe abroad, speaking at the International Buddhist Women's Conference, and then spending some time in Vietnam. So we're very excited to have her back here, and Hugh, we're very grateful to have you talk here today. And I'll turn it over to you with that. That's really abbreviated. Feel free to, if there's anything you'd like to add in, go for it. Yeah, we're really excited to have you.
Yeah. Thank you, Prajna, for having me here, and welcome everyone to my presentation. Let me go ahead and share my screen.
Great. Perfect.
Yes. So today we're going to talk about something that in the middle of Western psychology and Buddhist uh, psychology as well. It comes from the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern clinical practice. So I call it non-attachment as a clinical model for trauma and stress-related mental health disorders. I know that many of us, the idea of non-attachment sound like a little bit abstract or maybe even a little bit cold. But what it actually is the one of the most powerful tools to have plans to find true liberation from suffering. So my hope at the end of this presentation, you can have some new perspective on integrate these principles to your own work. Um, uh, so my motivation for this presentation comes from the meeting point between two powerful traditions, Buddhist wisdom and contemporary Western psychology. What happened? Uh-oh. Yeah, and so as someone who has lived deeply with both these worlds, I have been often feel called to wisdom. So in Buddhist teaching, I saw the profound guidance on the root of suffering and the path to liberation. And in psychology, I discovered the scientific tools to understanding the mind, trauma, and healing as well. So when we look at the complex of trauma, it has to draw from multiple resources. Then we can see what we can see here is my model view on the dialogue between Buddhist teaching and Western psychology. That isn't about to choose one over the other, but it's about finding where they align and how they can reinforce one another. So let's start with a very foundational question: what is trauma? We often think of as a specific event, but it's more like that. It's like the profile. This is the event, a series of events that overwhelm a person's ability to cope or integrate their emotions, and the result is lasting distress. So it brings us to what I call the paradox of trauma. So the mind may intellectually want to let go, want to move on, and don't want to think about that never again, but the nervous system, what has been conditioned by the experience, doesn't feel safe to do so. And that this creates a very powerful internal conflict. Like a mother keep apologizing for things that aren't her fault, or conditioned by years of blame or manipulation, or a client hesitates to express her anger because she's so fearful of being punished or get emotional withdrawal. So trauma is not a choice. It's a wound that the time only cannot heal because the trauma remembers what the mind wants to forget. And it's also important to acknowledge that trauma never exists in isolation. It's ripple outwards, shaping individually, families, and entire communities, and that look at the ongoing impact. So for individuals, trauma may show up as a chronic anxiety, depression, disassociation, or difficulties in regulating emotion or even physical symptoms. For families, they often interrupt patterns of communication, weaken attachment bonds, and alert parenting norms cross generations as well. And it's more severe when we look at a community level. So trauma is reinforced through structural discrimination, poverty, racism, and also like sexual exclusion. All of these like factors that continue the cycle of harm. So together, this reminds us what trauma is not just a personal struggle, it's a collective issue that requires responses at multiple levels of care. So this is an urgent question. So how do we interrupt this cycle? Is trauma biased to the past? How do we cultivate the freedom to choose our relationship to the pain? And here is like when trauma roots us into the suffering, the question is how do we find a relief? Sorry, the slide is not under my control. It keeps running. So here is where so when the trauma roots us into suffering, how do we get rid of it? How do we find a relief? And Buddhist psychology point us towards non-attachment, not in differences, but the spaces, freedom that allow us to experience life without being consumed by it. And the heart of these teachings are the Four Noble Truths. So first, the suffering, the reality of suffering, like pain, loss, and stress, touch every human being. And next, the cause of it is our clinging and resistance that even deepens the pain. And the truth of sensations that means like freedom is possible, healing is possible, and non-attachment is that release, that let go, that what bites us. And finally, the path is a noble essence path where mindfulness, stability, and insight show us the way. So non-attachment even increase the hardship. It transforms our relationship to it, and we are no longer defined or trapped by it. So non-attachment non-attachment has its origins in Buddhist wisdom. Sorry, keep running back and forth. Yeah. So non-attachment has its origins from Buddhism, and gradually Western psychology is now confirming its power. It's not like mysticism, but it's about a skill that we can learn, measure, and cultivate for resilience. Clinically, non-attachment is understood as a flexible and balanced way of relating to our experience, like non-clinging to pleasure or control or the past, non-resisting pain, uncertainty, or change, but lifting on of it with openness and adaptability. So what does the research show? Studies use non-attachment scales to demonstrate strong connection between non-attachment and qualities like mindfulness, emotional non-reactivity, self-compassion, and what called eudaimonic well-being, like deeper sense of fulfillment that comes from living with meaning and purpose. So non-attachment is not passively resignation, but is an active capacity to engage fully in life while remaining unshackled by it. So, and this is very important to trauma, because survivors often swing between extremes, either clinging tightly to safety, shutting down in resistance. So non-attachment offers another way, like present without captivity. And it's also important to acknowledge and distinct that we have two very different ideas that often get confused, like attachment theory and non-attachment, that what I'm talking here. So both arise from very distinct traditions. Each offer valuable insight on healing. So first, non-attachment developed by Bowlby and Armsworth show us that early relationships form internal templates for security or insecurity. When those bonds are secure, we learn to trust and connect. When they are not, the patterns of anxiety, avoidance, or fear can develop. So in this framework, attachment is about healthy bonding, the relational gravity that supports resilience. On the other hand, non-attachment from Buddhist psychology approaches suffering from another angle. It's poised to have clinging, whether to the ideas, emotion, or relationship, deepens our distress. By practicing non-attachment, we cultivate equanimity, recognizing the impermanence and constructive nature of all experience. So importantly, it is not emotional coldness. That is the freedom to care profoundly while no longer being imprisoned by outcomes. So why non-attachment theory emphasize the necessity of the secure bonds, non-attachment emphasize the wisdom of letting go. Together, they remind us that resilience requires both rootedness in state condition, and openness in life's inevitable change. So bring everything together that we have just talked, like trauma, yeah. So sorry about the slide. So I want to introduce a model. It's called Sila, Samadhi, and Paññā. These are Sanskrit words, and that I feel is very important to me to keep the original terms here when we try to integrate more Western philosophy and psychology into the practice. So Sila is the embodied presence, Samadhi is in mental stability, and Paññā is clear seeing. And Sila is so first Sila is embodied presence. That is the practice comes from harmonizing body, speech, and mind within the present moment. And Samadhi or stability is the ability to remain steady and open. Cultivate inner stability and spaciousness allow us to respond rather than react. And Paññā is the wisdom of clear seeing. It's the insight to perceive things as they truly are, accepting reality without distortion. So let's start with Sila. This is the foundations of SSB model. So trauma is often so our connection to the body, leaving us trapped in the past pain or anxious about the future. And the embodied presence, embodied state and mind is the first step towards restoring the sense of safety and groundedness. Clinical goals for this first step is anchor the client in the present moment, increase awareness of bodily sensations, create a secure sense of body and spatial safety. And the therapist may use interventions like mindfulness breathing, like notice the breath as it is, no need to train it, just observe. Somatic tracking, like as you bring that memory into mind, what sensation do you notice? Or let's explore them together. Or co-regulation, like sharing comes from the nervous system, the therapist's nervous system support the client as well. Or sensory orientation, like identify things around you or sound that you hear, like reconnect them with the presence through the sensation. And in order to support the client into this step, the therapist must come from the grounded stance, like because your ability provides steady reflection for the client and a tool like notice subtle shifts in posture, tone, or breath, and need to be very present, like hold space without trying to fix anything and being fully with what arises. Why this matters? So Sila resonates with the principles of polyvagal theory and somatic therapy by cultivating a friendly and embodied relationship with the body. It lays a groundwork for samadhi, stable attention. So the next is so samadhi, based on our grounding on the body and the breath, we move to another stage of mindfulness is stability, mental stability. So normally trauma narrow our experience, keep us trapped in the cycle of keep us in the cycle like of reaction, overreaction, or emotional shutdown. So mental stability or samadhi, is the practice of abiding, the ability to remain present with discomfort without being overwhelmed. Clinically, the goal in this practice is to enhance self-observation. So for example, notice the anger without merging with it, or support emotional regulation, like expand the client's window of tolerance for trauma processing, or cultivate inner stillness, like develop a calm center that induces ever during emotional storms. And core interventions in this step is like pause and notice. Like we aim to build the space between trigger and reaction, or label thoughts and feelings. Like this is here because like naming the emotion helps organize neutral activity. Or self-sense awareness. Like when we feel this sadness, for example, like where do you feel this sadness in your body? Like we locate it, identify the stress, locate and try to keep that space, keep space between what we feel, what we see in the body, what's actually the neutral sense. So in order to do this, the therapist needs to have the calm and anchors, because your regulated nervous system serves a stability present for the client to do so as well, and spaces and mindful, like allows silence or resisting the urge to immediately fix, or mirroring or reflective mirroring, like show the client their capacity to observe their own experience. It may first come from the therapist's response, but also like gradually invite the client to do so in their nervous system as well. And this samadhi, the mental stability, is very resonate with window of tolerance, and samadhi helps clients navigate between hyperarousal and hyperarousal. The goal isn't to eliminate the stress, but to relate to it with more grounded and skillful ways, because you have more space between whatever is happening inside the nervous system, with the nervous system. We have time and space to have a better response. And with the samadhi, we can move forward to another step. It's called Paññā, or we can use with like insight or clear seeing. With this step, the suffering and the root will be addressed. So, what is clear seeing in trauma work? Not only trauma is very strongly impact the perceptions of memories, and that normally convince us like I am broken, the pain define me, and the clear thing is the awakening to different truths. Like this is passing storm, it's not the sky, so like that. At this step, the clinician aims to support the client, like illuminate the pattern, like how to have the client identify how the patterns impact their daily life, like how the belief of unhealthy, unworthy influence your choices, like that. And also have the client to transform the internal narrative, like shift from I'm damaged to like I'm learning to live with this wound. Another thing like try and to validate awareness, like to have the client notice how fear contracts, like for example, like fear and trauma contract their body, and they noticing the freedom of seeing them as they are, seeing the fear as the fear, not trying to run away from it. Yeah, but have faith so we can see what's happening. And also try to this step helps to redefine the relationship with suffering, like neither fighting nor merging with it, but holding with new perspectives around it. So the core intervention to apply clear seeing in therapy, so like use open-ended inquiries, like what happens when you acknowledge this sadness is present, something like that, or exploring the impermanence, like think of a past pain that once seemed endless. How does it feel now? Like to have the client notice the bigger picture, notice their process, or perceiving like guide clients to witness thought as the event of the mind and not absolute truth. So, in order to bring this step into the therapy, the therapist carry the sense of like acceptance, no fixing, or and supportive like supporting for example, like I hear the fear this memory brings, and I also see your courage to face it. Yeah, supporting like that. Or the moment of clear seeing is when the client realize that their trauma is a story, but not their identity. Is the Paññā of clear seeing in action. So for the whole process of working with trauma, I was longing to hear this sentence, like they can look at their stories and redefine it. Yeah. And then when non-attachment becomes tangible in therapy, like letting go the narrative and that keeps them in suffering. So how this model works in therapy? Yes. Yeah. In therapy, this SSC model is a shared journey. It's not something that clients have to practice alone. For the therapist, for the therapist, this is a way of being, like a compassionate orientation that supports clients in letting go of like stress, attachment, and the lasting effect of trauma. This focus is not fixing, not on fixing, but on holding space with presence, steadiness, and clarity. And for the clients, the SSC model becomes a lived experience, like a stepwise path, towards genuine freedom, and that they can reconnect with their innate wisdom, what we can call as real sanity, basic goodness, or bodhicitta, and that is the resilience, the sense of wholeness as a human being. And I want to introduce a case that I have applied this model to, and in my clinical work. So let's come with this. So this client is a woman. So this client is working through anxiety and trauma from both abuse and violence from childhood and adulthood as well. She comes to therapy seeking for emotional regulation and a safe place to process her intense experience. As in the early sessions, we were often overwhelmed by her racing thoughts. So it takes a few sessions to just to make her nervous system feel calm by applying like co-regulation and using grounding techniques. And gradually after that, I introduced to her FSC model to her and integrating mindfulness exercise that begins the practice, so she can later begin to practice herself by herself. And over time, she developed the ability to notice her emotion without being carried away by them. And through our work, she discovered the presence that already exists within her, and it allow her to help to set healthy boundaries and approach to the challenges with more like increased clarity. So her journey illustrates that while trauma can distort her perceptions, but her clear awareness through this model can heal. And the SSD model provided her with a practical tool to transform her relationship with herself, like one more mindful moment at a time. So this is a short case that I keep it very short. So, and now I want to invite you all, maybe if you feel comfortable to, just like turn on your screen and have a piece of paper inside, and we will do experiential. Okay. Yeah, I invite you all to share a little bit. So maybe you have a piece of paper in hand, just like this. I just see all of you. Okay, okay. So we have, yeah, so, okay, so now we have the piece of paper like cover our face and we can't see anything, right? And now I invite you to make a whole of your paper, just a whole, yeah, like this, okay? I don't know how to, what, yes, yes. Okay, okay, so now, the first step, you're gonna use your pointing finger and middle finger to hold it and try to look through the hole. Okay. Basically, is the paper is not stable, or how easy or how hard it is to look through it. Okay. And now the second step is you use both of your hands, hold it firmly. Okay. So you can see through the hole easier. So at first, you not very skillful hold the piece of paper, so that the paper is not stable and it's hard for you to look through it. But with two hands, so the piece of paper becomes stable and firm, so you can see through the hole easier. So basically, this experiential is the metaphor for when you skillfully hold the piece of paper. The piece of paper become like stable, so you can see clearly. Okay, it's similar to when you I'm trying to stop share, but I don't know what. I'm not sharing what. Am I sharing my screen? Okay.
Screen share just stopped. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So basically, so mindfulness, stability, and clear seeing is three like three pillars of this. When you have the sense of presence, when you connect to the sense of presence, your mind becomes stable. From the stability of mental stability, that mental stability, you can see clearly what's happening. See here is not using eyes, but like more awareness, like the awareness that you can see. So when we connect to the present moment, the mind becomes stable. From that stability, you can see what's happening. So that basically the core of my model is like that. So with the parents is similar because they aren't able to connect to the sense of presence or the sense of safety in their body and the present moment. We support them doing that. We support them by mindfulness practices or grounding techniques like that in order to bring them reconnect with the present moment. And in that connect to the present moment, their mind is able to become stable. Like we have an aspect watcher, like observers that can see what's happening. So that is just the metaphor, but that is the core technique of this model. So I hope that you all can get understanding the very kind of very much of metaphor of the experiential, but it's basically in spiritual practice and also clinical practice as well. Yes. So I pause my presentation here. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to just speak up.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mihiu. I'll just start. There's a comment in our Facebook. Oh, perfect. There's a comment in our Facebook chat, and this is the exact same question that I asked you when you shared this model with me. And that is usually we see Sila, Samadhi, and Prajna being defined a little bit differently in the US. And we often see Sila being defined as ethical code or ethical conduct, and Samadhi being defined as mental discipline. Would you care to comment on that? And noting maybe that goes along with kind of what Francis was offering Dr. Koklauskis of Western versus Eastern Buddhist philosophy.
Yeah, I think that that's a very good question because most of the time people come to that question from religious background because when they come to like a monastery or Buddhist setting and they were taught by okay, here is the Sila, Samadhi, and Paññā is like discipline and then concentration and wisdom. And this is like when that and the discipline basically naming that what you should do in order to prevent or the unethical conduct. So from that sense, that it is what you should do, what you should not do in order to have peace. Okay. And if we look deeply into the mechanism of how action and behavior work, like because we notice, we are aware of what we are doing. So we can define what is benefit and what is not benefit, other like us and other people and other human beings. And that is the core of the discipline, comes from Buddhist teaching. And the five base discipline or principles of for lay people, like precepts. For lay people also focus on that. With people understanding their behavior because they are aware. And because they are aware, so they are mindful of what they are doing, saying, or consuming, either leading to like benefit or leading to harm on other beings. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. I have another question I'll offer, but I'll just hold. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to put them in the comments or throw up a hand. Anything is fine. And I guess in the meantime, what I will ask, and this is just kind of, oh, perfect. Michael's got a question. Michael, I'll let you go first. Go ahead. Oh, I think you might be muted.
Sorry, there we
Oh,
go.
there we go. Cool.
Yeah, the Sīla question was also one that came to my mind of the traditional interpretation being the ethical or moral conduct, kind of being the basis for the other two trainings. You know, as someone who struggles with addiction, Sīla is probably my weakest of the three trainings. And it does, you know, it makes the concentration of Samadhi and the wisdom that would come from that almost impossible if I'm continuing to take these unskillful actions. So my question to Hugh would be, how do you work with a client who appears to be continuing to engage in these destructive behaviors that may make the other aspects more difficult to perform?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think that comes from a very like experience struggle in life, and yeah, that happened a lot. And a lot of people refuse to come to the Buddhist sangha or community because they feel more guilty of not able to follow those precepts. So first, one of the precepts of Sila is the foundation, and that should be the support for any practitioner or any client who come to the practice. And second, so when I provide teaching and I say, here is the guidance that not necessarily have to be your path. And during the Buddha time, there was a chief disciple of the Buddha was a murderer. One of those are, and he had the delusion of he needs to kill 100% people to get 100 point fingers so he can transcend and become God or whatever. And during that time, when the Buddha appeared in his life at the last on the 99, so that was the last person was about to be killed. And in that moment, the awareness arrived. So he stopped. So basically, all of us have our own journey, and like we are human beings, we're very smart. In fact, basically, the mind most of the time intellectually wants to do this, wants to do that. But however, we have a whole nervous system with so many different aspects like emotional, psychological, physical. So the mind only cannot do anything with the synchronize with other parts as well. So understanding that and offering compassion and understanding empathy to support other parts. So like blaming or creating more shame isn't helpful. And with that, come from that background when it's similar when I work with someone with addiction and encourage them because every time that a person fails, they bring more awareness, a little bit more awareness on their journey, and they are the expert on their recovery. So we are here just helping, like providing support and groundedness and co-regulation. They know what happened to them the most. and they have to fight their own internal conflict. So bringing to the table what is helpful, because as we come from like mindful and like more aware position, we have things, and that means we can see more deeply what they are struggle with, not create more stress or pressure for them on their journey. Yeah, so I hope that I answer your question.
Thank you. Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mihiu. This is like a little bit of just a selfish question. But I'll just offer, and I think that we've shared about this a little bit, but it goes back to, again, that kind of like the westernized interpretation of Sila Samadhi Prajna. And after I have the benefit of being able to talk with you about these things. And these are practices that I've started using in my own practice, and I find them to be very helpful. And this is gonna seem like a go me, but I'm just gonna offer like what I do, and mostly just to ensure that I'm kind of on the right track, and you can kind of add in. Um, but after I've talked with you, the way that I internalize Sila Samadhi Prajna for myself and in my clients is, Sila, you can interpret it as ethical code, but it can be more, I think, just in what you shared with me, just like acting in alignment with yourself and connecting to your own brilliant sanity and your own true authenticity. And that's kind of what our ethical code is. In so many ways, it's just a who am I? And the first step of that is kind of the awakenness, being present to that. And that I wonder, and feel free to like, if I'm off track, Hugh, please feel free to like jump in. Um, but I wonder, Michael, if this kind of relates to what you're saying as well. I think especially in experiences of addiction, but also trauma. I mean, so many mental health experiences when we experience real hardship, real adversity, maybe at times in our lives where we don't know how to deal with that, where we don't really have any resources to deal with that besides, kind of hunkering down or numbing. I think that returning to our awareness, to who we are, like that can be a really scary, that can be a really scary thing for anyone. And the way that I work with that in my practice, which is largely informed by what experts share with me around meditation, mindfulness, just in clinical use, is I think when I work with that with clients, we'll kind of, and just as Hugh, as you said, like we'll do it together. We'll connect to the breath together, and we'll start slow, just connecting into the breath. And then we'll go a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. And then I almost find it to be a progression. When you start to really connect to the authentic self, the brilliant sanity, um, samadhi just comes from there. And again, like samadhi can be mental discipline, or as he was kind of offered, like it can be just more grounding in ourselves. And I think when we can connect with our brilliant sanity, we can have a space within ourselves to ground in and be at peace with. And then those two almost seem to me like a forward cycle, of the more aligned with ourselves we are, the more grounded in our own authenticity we are going to be, and the more in alignment our actions are going to be. Um, and then the clear seeing kind of comes from there. And I do mean that as a question. That's not just me like sharing what I do, but you, is that like in kind of alignment with the Dhamma, or kind of like how how you think about these things?
Yeah, that's a long question. I'm very sorry. um, yeah, in terms of like question nine definition of those Buddhist terms, I could say that because we are in clinical field and we try to become like as helpful as we can, so people normally use and try to create a practice that can immediately create more benefit or heal or treatment for clients or for whoever in need. And so I would say that that's okay, and that should be like encouraged to do so. And however, need to leave space for like more explore and more learning from, okay, here's what have been helpful. So what is the rest of it? Like we keep more learning, and also the piece of humility through the original teaching, and also when we come from that position and look at like what have been changed over the time to when the process of bringing teaching from the original times to here, and also not only in Western society but also in some other Eastern as well, because everything's impermanent and different Buddhist schools have different interpretation on the teaching based on where the teaching will be taught to, and based on the population, the way that the doctrines or the principle will like preserve and to keep in. Yes, also the teachers training and growing up and background as well. So a lot of things come into consideration of how we can use and how much we can keep the original meanings of it. So it's similar when we look at research and different interpretation as well. We consider what is original, what's happened helpful, and what is so a lot of things need to bring on the table to look at the whole picture instead of just take the benefit and then run away. Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions? Let me just check our other chat here. Not seeing any. Hugh, if anyone has questions for you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yes. You have my email address, and yeah, for whatever, yeah, you are welcome to reach out with any other questions, maybe like clinical practice or either like Buddhist teaching as well. I'm more happy to get in touch.
Great, excellent. Thank you so much. Feel free to put your email address in the chat if you like, and otherwise anyone can email me at brenna@nourishedrfi.org. Forward on to you as well.